I've come from California, and I came here to do a job, and I liked it so much that I bought this home. My family likes it, and I love it. But the history, the real estate history, I knew very little of. I've had my house for over 30 years.
We learned today that actor Louis Gossett Jr. has died, a trailblazing actor, the first black man to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
It's often said that a house holds the deepest secrets of its inhabitants. But some houses don't just contain memories, they harbor pain and deadly mysteries. The abandoned home of Louis Gossett Jr. wasn't merely an old shelter. It was a relic of a life that weathered countless storms until it ended in a way no one could have foreseen. Louis, who once shone brightly on the screen, found himself ensnared by darkness, loneliness, and wounds that could never heal. That mansion no longer echoes with laughter or glows with light, only a haunting silence remains. Along with a lingering question, what happened there? The story of Louis Gossett Jr. unveils a chain of tragedies untold behind the glare of fame. On May 27, 1936, amid the bustling streets of Brooklyn, New York, a newborn's cry pierced through a dilapidated apartment in Brownsville. Louis Gossett Jr. was born into a damp, crumbling space, with cracked walls and floors reeking of aged, rotting wood. His African-American family crowded into a shabby room with only an old iron bed, a chipped wooden table, and a few tattered blankets. His father, a dock worker, came home each night with calloused hands, while his mother toiled as a maid in white households, breaking her back for pennies to buy stale bread or watery soup. The nation was still reeling from the Great Depression, and every day wore them down with poverty. Without a heater, the spring winds cut like knives through the drafty door, making young Louis shiver in the midst of weary sighs. But hunger and cold weren't the only threats. Racism slithered through every street corner, glaring from signs that read, "Whites Only," a cruel reminder that they didn't belong. By the winter of 1941, when Louis turned 5, Brooklyn was blanketed in snow, and their apartment grew even more frigid. His father, exhausted from back-breaking days at the docks, began disappearing more often, leaving Louis's mother to fend for herself in quiet despair. Young Louis, frail and skinny, already sensed the world's hostility. Neighborhood kids threw rocks and hurled slurs, while school became a place of cold stares and sneaky punches. Then, one December night, a searing pain jolted him awake. His joints felt like they were burning, every movement an agony. A hasty visit to a rundown clinic revealed a rare diagnosis for a child, especially in the slums, rheumatoid arthritis. From then on, Louis grew weaker, unable to play like other kids. Each morning's walk to school was a grueling ordeal, his body a burden as pitying and scornful eyes surrounded him. His mother, drained from endless work, sat by his bedside every night, her gaze dimming with fading hope. They both knew the disease wasn't just stealing his health, it was pulling Louis away from the world, like a forgotten soul lost in a crowd. The challenges didn't end there. Under the weight of poverty and illness, the family began to fracture. By the summer of 1943, when Louis was 7, he'd lie still in the dark, listening to his parents' heated arguments. His usually stoic father grew irritable, his grueling job barely enough to feed them. His mother, worn out, could only respond with weary complaints. Long nights passed in stifling tension, sighs replacing words of comfort. Sometimes, Louis wondered if his illness and presence were what made everything so heavy. Though just a child, he keenly felt the adults' helplessness and the growing cracks in their fragile home. When World War II ended in the fall of 1945, cheers of victory rang across America. But in Brooklyn's shadows, the Gossett household lived in a different world, where joy couldn't pierce their poverty. At 9, Louis witnessed a scene that seared into his memory, a black man beaten by 3 white youths on a crowded street. Passers-by looked away, and the arriving cop only added insults. Louis stood frozen. That image, with all its fear and powerlessness, etched itself into his mind like an indelible scar. Though his mother tried to reassure him, the truth was stark. Not everyone was born with the right to safety. And for Louis, his skin was a verdict. Time slipped by quietly, and Louis entered his teens with a frail body but a hardening spirit. At 17, an unexpected chance emerged. His Brooklyn high school, where he was often invisible, staged a small play. Initially, he joined to escape boring classes, but he landed a minor role. When the stage lights hit, their heat burned away his shyness. The feeling of being seen, truly present, made his heart race. Though the applause was sparse, it thundered in his ears. In that moment, Louis envisioned a different future, one where he wasn't just a poor black kid, but a recognized human being. Little did he know, that dream would demand sacrifices that could scar him for life. By late 1953, a real opportunity arrived. A Manhattan director, tipped off about Louis, invited him to audition for the lead in Take a Giant Step on Broadway. Stepping into the theater, Louis felt swallowed by seasoned actors whose skeptical eyes tracked his every move. Untrained, he faced polished competitors, but when the stage lit up, a bolder Louis emerged, vibrant and compelling. The role, a black teen facing prejudice, mirrored his own life. The opening night ended with roaring applause, and his name hit the papers, branded with the word talent. In the spring of 1955, New York glowed with sunlight and the sound of saxophones drifting from Greenwich Village bars. The success of Take a Giant Step warmed Louis's spirit. But life remained harsh. No formal training, no money, and a black actor in a white-controlled industry, Louis was navigating without a map. He took short acting classes in the village, though brief. Those sessions were like water to a parched soul. He immersed himself in off-Broadway shows, where small stages kept his dream alive. On those stages, Louis fought relentlessly. Every role, no matter how minor, was a battlefield where he gave his all. But the reward was meager pay and doubtful glances. People praised his gift, but often added, "Audiences aren't ready for a black star." He was typecast in supporting roles: thieves, servants, drunks tied to stereotypes. That's when he began to grasp the industry's deep unfairness. By July 1959, Louis ventured into television, a risky move. He landed a small role in a New York show, standing before the camera, heart pounding. He hoped millions would see him, but when the episode aired, most of his scenes were cut. The excuse sounded reasonable, but Louis knew the real message: TV wasn't ready for a blackface to linger too long. Still, he didn't break. He worked twice as hard, taking every tiny role to keep learning and stay visible. 2 years later, in the summer of 1961, Louis arrived in Hollywood for A Raisin in the Sun, the film adaptation of a hit play. California dazzled with golden sun and swaying palms. At 25, he toiled under blazing studio lights but still played a supporting role. He lived in a cheap motel on the outskirts of Los Angeles, where the stench of grease and nightly arguments were familiar sounds. While white actors stayed in fancy hotels and earned big checks, Louis counted pennies for meals. Life dragged on for 4 years. In early 1965, a crushing incident hit. Driving to an audition in Beverly Hills as the sunset painted the sky orange, Louis was pulled over, police lights flashed, and soon 2 white officers yanked him from his car, handcuffing him without cause, simply for being a black man in a privileged area, humiliated with vicious words. His artistic dreams belittled. Louis sat in a cold cell for hours, released without apology or explanation. 2 years later, with his career still shaky, Louis sought solace in his personal life. He met Louis Gossett at a small Manhattan cafe. Something about her gentle smile, her knowing eyes drew him in. They married in a simple fall 1967 ceremony and moved into a Harlem apartment, its windows opening to the lively streets. Hetty believed in his talent, pinning hopes on their shared future, but reality soon exposed their differences. Louis's grueling work schedule kept him away, leaving Hetty alone in a cold apartment. She felt abandoned while he drowned in pressure and setbacks. Simmering tensions erupted into conflicts. She craved stability. He chased an unformed dream. after just a year. The marriage collapsed. Hetty left, leaving the apartment empty. That day, Louis stared at their wedding photo on the wall, his heart shattered. He wondered, could he hold on to love when his ambitions kept pulling him away from reality? By October 1969, Louis was still grinding in the entertainment world. He took stage and TV roles, but most were stereotypical servants, criminals, shallow archetypes, while shooting in a small town. He was denied a hotel room because of his race, standing in freezing rain, suitcase soaked. He swallowed his rage and found a cheap motel with moldy walls and bug-infested beds. Such experiences quietly forged his resolve, but left him feeling alone in a cold world. In the early 1970s, Louis worked like a tireless soldier. He shuttled between New York and Los Angeles, seizing every opportunity, no matter how small. Hollywood's bright lights and frenetic pace became a battlefield where he staked everything. But injustice was everywhere. Lead roles for black actors were scarce and usually went to others, and his pay was always less than white co-stars. In the spring of 1971, during a production meeting, Louis overheard two producers admit he was talented, but audiences weren't ready for a black hero. Amid this uncertainty, Louis found fleeting peace in his personal life. In 1973, at a small Los Angeles party, he met Christina Mangosing, a smart woman whose eyes seemed to soothe his darkest corners. They came together naturally. And that summer, a cozy wedding marked the start of building a home by the Palms, where birdsong greeted each morning. A year later, their son Satie's arrival felt like perfect happiness. Holding his tiny son, Louis felt a pure joy that no stage triumph could match. But that happiness was fragile as morning dew. Work pulled Louis away, leaving the house empty. Christina grew quieter, her hopes fading. His exhausted returns only widened the gap, not just in time, but in trust and shared dreams. Arguments over money and emotional absence tore them apart. Louis tried to hold the family together, but by May 1975, the marriage ended. Christina left, leaving Louis and Satie in a silent, hollow home. Hollow. In that desolation, an unexpected chance arrived. In June 1977, the miniseries Roots, an epic about slavery, cast Louis as Fiddler, a complex, layered character. Under Los Angeles' glaring studio lights, he poured his soul into the role, embodying silent pain and unyielding spirit. When Roots aired, America was stunned. From cramped apartments to lavish mansions, millions were gripped by the story. Louis became a star, earning an Emmy nomination and media praise. Yet, that recognition didn't bring real change. A producer coldly remarked that Roots' success was a special case, a reminder that Louis's place in the industry remained precarious. By the late 1970s, when offered a return for Roots: The Next Generations, Louis declined. The script lacked depth, the role a pale shadow of Fiddler. Despite warnings, he stood firm. Gossip spread through the industry. Some called him arrogant, saying he was sabotaging his future. But for Louis, compromising wasn't living. He craved roles with true value, not just props for the screen. The cost was isolation and dwindling offers. It wasn't until the winter of 1982 that another chance emerged. Louis was cast as Emile Foley in An Officer and a Gentleman. He poured his passion into the role, refining every glance and gesture as if it were his last. When the film hit theaters, audiences leapt to their feet, clapping, and in the darkened theater, Louis let tears fall. In April, at the Oscars, his name rang out amid thunderous applause. He became the first black man to win Best Supporting Actor. Soon after, Louis bought a Malibu beachfront mansion, a symbol of his triumph. Glass walls faced the ocean. The pool sparkled in the sunset. It was a dream come true. But at night, as waves whispered, Louis felt a growing void, mounting bills, financial strain, and sparse roles trapped him in his own spotlight. A director once bluntly told him an Oscar didn't change his skin color, a cutting truth that sliced through his belief that talent could overcome bias. And it was true. Despite the acclaim, worthy roles were denied. Praise often masked prejudice. Louis knew the road ahead was still fraught, where victory didn't mean real change, just a quiet milestone in a long fight for those deemed different. 6 months later, a bold challenge arose. Louis was chosen to portray Egypt's President Anwar Sadat in the miniseries Sadat. He studied documentaries, practiced Sadat's cadence and walk, aiming to craft a masterpiece. But when Sadat aired in September 1983, backlash hit hard. Egyptian critics decried casting an African American as an insult to history. American audiences, unaccustomed to diverse stories, grew indifferent. All of Louis's effort and sweat seemed overshadowed by debates over his race. Still, it didn't break him. From 1983 to 1989, Louis persisted in his craft. From Jaws 3D, 1983, to Enemy Mine, 1985, and Iron Eagle, 1986. California's film sets were where he clung to hope. But each project left its own scars. Despite his Oscar, his pay lagged behind white peers of equal stature. His roles, though varied, were often confined to supporting or stereotypical parts: pilots, warriors, villains. In the summer of 1985, a blunt rejection for Enemy Mine's lead role felt like a fatal blow. Louis saw racism, an unyielding beast, reminding him that an Oscar wasn't a shield from deep-seated bias. Amid career storms, Louis sought comfort in his personal life. In 1987, at a Los Angeles charity event, he met Cindy James Reese, a vibrant woman full of love. They bonded quickly. And that fall, a warm wedding took place. The Malibu mansion, with its sunlit white walls, became their new home, where Louis placed his hopes for the future. That year, they adopted Sharon, a bright-eyed boy Louis met through charity work. Early on, Louis cradled Sharon, teaching him to hear the ocean's waves, dreaming of a lasting family. But that happiness wilted like a flower in a storm, like his prior marriages. Louis's demanding schedule pulled him away, leaving Cindy alone in the vast house. Late-night returns brought a growing sense of disconnection, and complaints escalated. A fight erupted on Christmas Eve 1988 when differences over career and family fractured their bond. Louis, drained by work pressure and financial duties, was consumed by his acting dreams and fear of losing his spotlight. Tensions soared, and the mansion's upkeep fueled their strife. By February 1992, the marriage collapsed. Cindy left, leaving the house a lavish cage for Louis and Sharon. Personal tragedies piled up, weighing heavily on Louis's soul. After the divorce from Cindy, he raised Sharon alone, his adopted son now growing up. But his bonds with Sharon and Sadie, his biological son from his earlier marriage, grew distant, with a hectic schedule and tangled emotions. Louis rarely had true moments with his sons. In the summer of 1993, he tried to create a warm family night, grilling Sharon's favorite meal to bridge the gap. But Sharon's coldness made the air heavy, and Satai, now grown and living separately, rarely reached out. Louis blamed himself, questioning his role as a father, wondering if his career and dreams had stolen precious time with his children. A mental crisis began to spread. By the winter of 1994, Louis slipped into dark depths. Sleepless nights in the living room, staring at the vast ocean. He felt his worth erode. Work dried up, auditions vanished. Some articles called him a faded star. Louis, once a symbol of resilience, doubted his place in the industry. The mansion, with its small cracks and faint musty smell, mirrored his weary spirit, later discovering spreading mold. He realized it wasn't just a sign of his mental decline, but a threat to his health. On the edge of despair, Louis resolved to find purpose. In June 1995, he founded the Racism Foundation, a group against racism, pouring his heart into speeches and community events to inspire youth. At Los Angeles centers, he shared wounds from discrimination, from being handcuffed in Beverly Hills to roles denied because of his skin. Though crowds sometimes cheered, an unfillable void lingered. He knew change was painfully slow. March 2000 brought a new challenge. Louis faced shortness of breath and persistent coughing. Initially mistaken for a cold, but worsening. Tests revealed the mansion's mold may have harmed his lungs. Later tied to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. Slowly eroding his health. Staring at the spreading mold, the house his dream symbol seemed to betray him. Repair costs exceeded his dwindling finances, and acting income shrank, leaving him powerless. The home, once his pride, became a curse, dragging him into sickness and struggle. By mid-2010, another earthquake shook Louis's life. He was diagnosed with early-stage prostate cancer. Treatment began swiftly, with medications and reduced work becoming a grueling routine. Though early, the cancer loomed like a shadow. The mansion's worsening mold intensified his coughing and breathing issues. Louis questioned if decades of struggle and sacrifice were worth it, leaving him a lonely, sick man in a crumbling house. His ties with his sons remained unhealed wounds. During treatment, he tried reconnecting with Sadie, but met only indifference. Sharon, though closer, shared less and less. Yet Louis refused to surrender. He wrote his memoir, An Actor and a Gentleman. In the Malibu mansion, chronicling his journey from Brooklyn's poverty, racial scars, personal tragedies, and Oscar glory. He bared his flaws, failures, the pain of divorces, estrangement from his sons, and Hollywood's neglect, though some praised its honesty. The book didn't make a big splash. After managing his cancer, financial woes hit like a fierce storm. Tax bills, maintenance, and medical costs, cancer drugs, COPD oxygen. Heart tests piled up on the kitchen table like relentless debt collectors. Acting income, once robust, now trickled. In July 2012, a bank letter warned of losing the mansion if debts weren't paid. Staring at red numbers, Louis felt his heart constrict. He sold prized possessions, but it barely dented the debt. He hoped to return to acting, but Hollywood, which once celebrated him, seemed to have forgotten him. Reaching out to an old director for a small role, he got a hesitant, delayed response, signaling his faded relevance. Borrowing from friends, Louis saved the house, but it still silently poisoned him. By the winter of 2015, COPD coughing worsened, requiring oxygen on bad days. Though cancer was stable, constant checkups were a mental battle. Each clinic visit felt like a weary soldier's march. Doctors warned COPD was advancing, and the mold needed removal. But repair costs were beyond his strained finances, and his energy waned amid illness and debt. In late April 2020, Louis made the painful choice to leave the Malibu mansion, selling it for less than hoped and moving to a home 20 miles from Atlanta. Georgia, nestled in lush woods with an indoor pool and windows opening to serene nature, it was where Louis hoped to find peace. He brought only a few keepsakes, starting anew. The fresh air and birdsong soothed his soul, but that peace was fleeting. By mid-2020, Louis contracted COVID-19. The virus struck his weakened body like a brutal storm. Hospitalized in Atlanta, he felt trapped in an invisible prison of cold machines and antiseptic smells. Defiant, he left early to face the illness at home. The wooden house under shady trees became his final fortress. But COVID's aftereffects worsened his COPD, making every breath a fierce struggle. Yet, he survived. The gentle spring of 2023 brought Louis a final chance, a role in the ambitious remake of The Color Purple. At 87, he left his Georgia home, tirelessly rehearsing lines, his frail voice still carrying resilient strength. Louis knew this might be his last performance, and he wanted it to be unforgettable. That fall, watching the film's rough cut, he felt the same pride as his Oscar night. Though the role earned respect, it couldn't save him from crushing illness and debt. Financial pressure hounded him like a relentless beast. His net worth, once estimated at $5 to $10 million from acting and producing, had dwindled. Medical costs, cancer drugs, COPD oxygen, heart tests devoured his savings. The Georgia house, though beautiful, became a burden with taxes, upkeep, and piling bills. That winter, Louis's health plummeted. COPD made breathing a challenge. Each step, agony. Atrial fibrillation and heart failure struck relentlessly, his heart racing like unforgiving foes. He entered a rehab facility in Santa Monica, California. Once defiant of hospitals, Louis had no choice now. His sons, Sati and Sharon, though notified, rarely visited. The will that overcame racism and poverty now belonged to an old man facing death alone. On the morning of March 29, 2024, Louis Gossett Jr. took his final breath at the Santa Monica Rehab Center. Aged 87, his death certificate listed COPD as the primary cause, with heart failure and atrial fibrillation contributing. His passing was quiet but heart-wrenching, per his wishes. His body was cremated, leaving a gentle peace for a man who once shook Hollywood. In his final moments, Louis likely reflected on his roles and battles. He left as a warrior who'd fulfilled his mission, resting calmly after a long, arduous fight. The Georgia house, where he sought late-life peace, fell silent after his death. No details emerged about its sale or transfer, and the privacy requested by Sati, Sharon, and the family deepened its mystery. Louis's death sent ripples through the entertainment world. Coleman Domingo, his Color Purple co-star, expressed gratitude for the path Louis paved, saying without him, black actors like himself might not exist. Fantasia Barrino, another co-star, spoke of his resilient story and unending fight, forever etched in her heart. Richard Gere, from An Officer and a Gentleman, praised him as a dedicated artist with a vast heart beneath a tough exterior. The Legal Defense Fund, where Louis served on the board, hailed him as a steadfast warrior for racial justice. A memorial wreath was placed at his Hollywood Walk of Fame star, tended by his former assistant, Miriam Holder Jacobs, as a quiet farewell. From CNN to the New York Times, Louis was honored as a pioneer, the first black man to win a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. A resilient icon who overcame every challenge, but those accolades meant little when he was no longer here to hear them. Still, Louis's legacy burns like an eternal flame. His 1983 Oscar, Emmy for Roots, and Golden Globe for The Josephine Baker Story mark historic milestones. His roles, from Fiddler in Roots to Emile Foley in An Officer and a Gentleman, remain cherished by film scholars, inspiring black stars like Denzel Washington, Will Smith, and beyond. The Racism Foundation, founded in 2006, continues its mission through discussions and community events, even without its founder. Louis faced prejudice with dignity and humor, leaving a humane legacy beyond any award. Louis Gossett Jr.'s death is a wordless, mournful song, but the fire he lit burns on. He broke barriers, widened paths for black actors, and fought for equality through the Racism Foundation, the Georgia House. Though silent without his laughter, holds the mark of a steadfast man, Louis left a profound void, but also gifted the world immortal roles, lessons in dignity and faith in justice. He wasn't just a screen star, he shone in the hearts of all who believe in hope and fairness.